A very warm welcome to 1000 PS TV, Suzuki GSXR 1000R, the 40 years anniversary edition. And 40 years of GSXR, that is honestly insane. That is pure sport motorcycle history, street sport motorcycle history at its finest. I mean, when the GSX-R 750 came out back then, that was simply a revolution. People could not even comprehend it. In the 1980s, people thought this cannot be real, that a machine like this would just come straight from the factory for the road. And Suzuki basically never let go in that segment after that. The GSXR 1100 was also absolutely insane, a truly unbelievably awesome motorcycle. And we can show you quite a few of those as well, because Suzuki has actually displayed many of these old race machines at Intermode. We will show you a couple of them because it really is a dream. And it is just like, you look at this history, these 40 years, and it is gigantic. I can personally say that my absolute fastest time ever, I also experienced that on a GSX-R 1000. That was in the year 2002. It was a K2 1000 GSX-R. I have never ridden that fast again in my life like I did back then. And I even won quite a few trophies on the racetrack. And one thing I also remember incredibly well is that the GSX-R 1000 was the only machine that would lift the front wheel in second gear at 140 kilometers per hour on the highway. Second gear, 140, bang, and endless riding on the rear wheel. That is something I will never forget. And even back then, there were other crazy 1000cc bikes around, but they all only managed that up to 120 kilometers per hour. That was simply this GSX-R engine. It always had more torque than all the others. Thank God there is now a 40 years edition, because the GSX-R 1000 was unfortunately discontinued in the year 2017 and was no longer produced. There was no Euro 5 version anymore. Suzuki stopped with the GSX-R at Euro 4. And of course, the community, the fan base was infinitely sad. And I myself also believed that this was it for the GSX-R, that no new one would ever come. And now they have actually released another one, namely a Euro 5B version. And of course, the engine, this brilliant GSX-R engine, cannot deny its heritage. Suzuki has adapted every single component when you look at it closely. So if anyone now thinks that this is just the old engine that they somehow refurbished, no, this is absolutely insane. From the pistons, the camshafts, the valve train, the bearing shells, everything has been renewed. And that is how the engineers managed to make this engine Euro 5B compliant. And in terms of performance, in the end, there are still 195 horsepower left. And 195 horsepower is no longer the benchmark in the supersport segment these days. We are now up there at 217 horsepower, maybe even more. But believe me, it really does not matter at all. Of course, at the regular stable, it is different when you say I have 217 horsepower versus I have 195 horsepower. But when you are riding out there on the road, it is completely irrelevant. It still has 110 Newton meters of torque and, as I said, 195 horsepower. Friends, believe me, this is an absolute avalanche. If we now take the GSX-R 1000 to the racetrack and ignore these Euro regulations a little bit, meaning installing an open exhaust system to let the engine breathe a bit more freely, then this GSX-R should deliver around 210 horsepower, possibly even more. I do not know that for sure. But the potential is definitely there. In the Euro 5B version for the street, they simply left it at 195 horsepower. But honestly, 195 horsepower on the street is insane. Mine back then had 160 horsepower, and as I said, second gear, 140, front wheel up effortlessly. We have a fantastic mechanical Showa suspension, but now we should not think, okay, the suspension is mechanical, maybe Suzuki saved money on electronics. No, Suzuki has brought everything here up to the latest standard. We have a 6-axis IMU, we have 10-level adjustable traction control. In the first 3 levels, the traction control is really serious, so you really need to know what you are doing, because you are giving the machine quite a lot of freedom. Someone who rides extremely well will be able to fully exploit these freedoms. Someone who does not ride extremely well might think afterwards, maybe I should have set the traction control a bit higher, whatever. In any case, this is very, very serious. And of course, we have cornering ABS, and naturally, we also have a quick shifter with blipper. Something I also hear quite often is about the exhaust. That has traditionally been a topic with Suzuki. People would say, well, the bike is great, but the exhaust is gigantic. I came here with that expectation as well, because I do not walk through social media with blinders on. I listen with open ears, and I heard it so many times that this exhaust is supposedly an eyesore. That is absolutely not true. The exhaust is longer. That is true. It is relatively long, but it is very slim. I honestly could not say that this is an ugly exhaust. For everyone who really cannot live with it at all, there is of course a matching Akrapovic available in the accessories program. But personally, I really like the exhaust. Very slim, elegant, unobtrusive grey pipe, and you can be sure that the pure GSX-R sound comes out of it. And the GSX-R sound is incomparable. Over all these years, it has always been the same. There is no engine that can scream as insanely and as hot as a GSX-R engine. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we still do not know how much it will cost. It will unfortunately not be available in spring, but we will probably have to be patient until summer. In summer, the GSX-R will be available at dealerships. And I assume that there are many GSX-R 1000 fans who are thinking, I absolutely need the 40 years edition. I can totally understand that. I also think these winglets are great. That is simply very, very important these days. But the GSX-R 1000 has always ridden incredibly well, even without winglets. But now it has them on top. What can I say? Back then it was radially mounted brakes, even though the other brakes were just as good. And nowadays it is the winglets that we consumers absolutely want to have. So I am glad that it has them, because that is completely up to date. I think it is a shame that we still do not know the price yet, but saving money is definitely necessary. It will not be cheap, that much is certain. And I also do not know how many units will be available. Another point, since I just noticed it, is the dashboard. The display has been criticized by many people, but personally I could not care less. If you ask me now, dude, what kind of display do you want? I would honestly prefer one like on the old GSX-R models. An analog tachometer and a speedometer done, then I am happy. And whether it is TFT or LCD really does not matter to me at all. The information shown will be readable. I also hope that Suzuki has completely avoided any kind of connectivity on this motorcycle, but I am not entirely sure about that. In general, I would be interested to know what you think about the GSX-R 1000, what do you think about the GSX-R history in general, whether you maybe had one back in the 1980s or whether you might be considering the 40 years edition. Regarding the color variants, I can still say this one here is dominated by blue. That is simply the typical Suzuki color, but there is also a red version and there is a yellow version, which personally reminds me of that glorious Suzuki Superbike era. They were basically unbeatable, truly insane. So friends, thank you very, very much for your attention. Stay loyal to me, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Bye and see you next time.